Hey friends, it's Gloria and welcome back to another video, or welcome if you're new here. This video, if you can already tell by the title, it's going to be a little different than what I usually talk about. I'm usually on here talking about the books I'm reading, and there will be books in this video, but it's a very niche, specific topic that doesn't interest everyone, so I totally understand if this is not your cup of tea. I'm going to be talking about pregnancy and parenting books and my birth story. I'm coming up on a year of being a mom, a year since my son was born, and it's been such a wild ride, and becoming a parent is such a huge identity shift, and going through pregnancy and childbirth is also such a huge moment in your life and like a life-changing moment. And so there's a lot of books on the topic, and I've read a handful. I also have a ton that I want to read, and I'm also looking for recommendations. So before you click away, if this is not your cup of tea and you don't really care about hearing details of a birth story, which I totally understand not many people do, but this is more of like a video diary for myself in the future as well, and also for anyone that's interested in birth stories. I know listening to positive birth stories really helped me when I was preparing for birth, and so I listened to a ton of podcasts and watched a ton of YouTube videos, and also read a lot of books. So all that to say, if you've read a parenting book that you have absolutely loved, that you thought was very helpful and interesting and made you think, please leave it recommended down below. That also includes books on motherhood and any books for also a husband or father to read as well. I'd love a list of books for my husband that were recommended by you. So that is my call to action, if you guys will leave any recommendations down below. But I'm going to, like I said, get into some books I've read, which ones I liked and which ones I didn't, and then a birth story in the end. So that's the plan for today's video. It's gonna be a little bit different, but I appreciate you guys sticking around if you're interested in this topic and listen to me babble on. There will be a lot of books covered. I'm going to list them all down below. If you have any specific questions, let me know, but I'm going to be going through them quick because I have a lot to cover. Okay, so starting with the books I've read and pregnancy specifically, the first one I read was Bumpin', The Modern Guide to Pregnancy, Navigating the Wild, Weird, and Wonderful Journey from Conception Through Birth and Beyond by Leslie Schrock. I really love this one, and the topics it covered and the author's voice in it as well felt very non-judgmental, felt very just matter of fact, and I really love this one. Would definitely recommend as a pregnancy book. One of the best ones that I've read, compared to one I didn't love as much, Expecting Better, Why the Conventional Pregnancy Wisdom is Wrong and What You Really Need to Know by Emily Oster. A lot of people really love this author, specifically her book Crib Sheet as well, which I have no interest reading because I read this one. I did not like it because she was so know-it-all, pretentious, like, I just don't like it. She's an economist, and so her voice was very much like, this is right, this is factual, this is stats, everything else is bogus. And I come from a culture, and also, I mean, my husband and I clash on this all the time. I come from a culture where anecdotes and like personal stories and how people are affected matter a lot, and so I love hearing someone's personal experience, even though they are an outlier and that is maybe not the norm. I had a harder time with this book, and this is definitely like a author and reader personality clash, which I did not like. Reading just a bunch of stats, I felt like it was very impersonal, and when the author did put in her opinion, I was like, you're annoying and I don't like you. But that's very unpopular. I tend to have unpopular opinions, but yeah, I didn't like this one. And if you're listening to my suggestions, I would say skip. Then I tried to read What to Expect When You're Expecting, which is like the pregnancy Bible, and also the Mayo Clinic's Guide to Pregnancy. These were just they're so dense. They're literally like a textbook, and I don't want to read that when I'm pregnant. This is very unreadable, uninspiring. Yeah, it has a ton of information in here, but I just couldn't really get into this one or the Mayo Clinic, so I would also say kind of skip on those if you're not like, I'm gonna sit down and read through this. Some people are probably able to get through this. Clearly this book is very popular for a reason, but I started and I couldn't get into them. And I much preferred the Mama Naturals Guide to Childbirth. This is a week-to-week guide by Genevieve Howland, and I also took like her free course. I really love this one. I was planning a natural childbirth or like an unmedicated childbirth, so this is more geared towards me, but this was very easy to read, digestible, like more of a pace. The book is full of illustrations and also recipes and little like bubbles and block text, and it is just much more easily digestible and pleasant to read. And we went through the whole book rather than something that's just like a brick of text. So I much prefer this one. Definitely a favorite pregnancy book that I read. Another favorite was Ina May's Guide to Childbirth. This book details natural childbirthing experiences by Ina May, who was a midwife in the 70s. And so there's just like really intense descriptive natural birthing scenes. There's a lot of different scenarios and situations, and it gives some very unconventional ways to cope with the birthing and labor pains. Not for everyone, but I did find this inspiring and interesting. And then another specific birthing book I read was Hypnobirthing: Practical Ways to Make Your Birth Better by Shobin Miller. It's an Irish name, I think, so I probably mispronounced it, but this is a UK book on hypnobirthing. I didn't read the original one because I couldn't get my hands on it in time, but I read this like during labor or right before labor started for me. Found it very helpful as well if you're going the unmedicated route, just techniques and ways to cope with the pain. Also very like, this is what's going to happen to your body, these are the steps that are happening, and just like be aware of those changes in your body and kind of like figure out what's going on as labor's happening was a good resource for me. Another one I read was Dear Future Mama by Megan Trainor. This was a celebrity motherhood memoir, so this is more about motherhood in general, but she did talk about pregnancy and labor and childbirth and just kind of the identity shift of being a mom, but very specifically to her life and how her life changed. And I thought it was just okay. It was a bit silly and like whatever as far as celebrity memoirs go, but kind of a fun one on the topic. This book I read right after childbirth, but I wish I read it in preparation because I think reading it beforehand would have helped, and that is The First 40 Days, The Essential Art of Nourishing the New Mother by Heng Wu. And this book touches on the Chinese traditions of caring for the mother the first 40 days after childbirth and how important it is to eat certain things and like replenish your body and also just be still and at peace and not feel like you have to do everything. And really this is just a good prep for postpartum and having the things in place and the people in place and food in place and all the things just to set up for success and health and the recovery period afterwards. I thought it was very helpful, and like I said, read it before, not after, because after you're like, well, too late. I can't really do anything about it. I'm already a new mom. Then moving into more like baby, taking care of baby and like parenting things that I've read. So my husband and I read both Baby Wise and Happiest Baby on the Block. These are both more of like taking care of your infant and sleeping. I should have prefaced this. Please, no negative comments about what is the right way or the wrong way. I have realized now since becoming a parent, everything is controversial. Everything is on one side or the other. For example, Baby Wise. Like a lot of people love it, and the people who are really into Baby Wise community are like Baby Wise Mama Facebook groups are all about it, and that like sleep training is positive. And then there's a bunch of other people that are like, it is torture if you're letting him cry. And there's just extremes for everything. I just don't need the negativity here. I think you are your own person and decide what is best for you and your family. Anyways, Baby Wise, we read it and we thought it was very helpful, and we were pro sleep training. My husband read it, he was like all about it. There's a plan and there's things you can do, and of course, like you have a baby and nothing goes to plan. So we did all the things it says to do, but my kid didn't start sleeping through the night till like 6 months, so it took a lot longer to like get him there. And then Happiest Baby on the Block is about the 5 S's, which is like shushing, swaying, swaddling, sucking, and I'm forgetting another one, but like the things that you do to your baby to calm them down, and they really shouldn't be crying because you're doing all of these things to basically help them in the adjustment period after they're born. Like the first 3 months after they're born, they're basically wanting to be back inside the safe little womb cocoon. So these are things you can try to help your child calm down. Yes, they were helpful, but they were also a little bit like, duh. If you have never been around kids at all, maybe they are going to be very new and helpful for you, like people who had never heard of swaddling or just don't do it. But I have nieces and nephews, I've been around kids, and so it was very much like, well, duh, you're gonna do this. And I also found the book very repetitive. Like this could be a 1-sheet list of things you can try for your kid. It doesn't need to be a whole book. I also read Moms on Call, Basic Baby Care 0 to 6 months by Laura Hunter and Jennifer Walker. These were nurses, I believe, that wrote a book on taking care of the baby. And I also found it a little bit like, duh, like it was kind of helpful, but kind of not. So I just thought it was okay. Those were kind of all like the infant. Then we read 2 books on the French way of parenting. So we read Bringing Up Bebe, One American Mother Discovers the Wisdom of French Parenting by Pamela Druckerman. This was a really interesting read. It made us think a lot and learn a lot about the French way of parenting, how it is completely different than American way of parenting, but it is not like a, oh, I loved everything about it, I'm going to take everything. And this is a little bit dated. The author also puts in like some advice that doesn't really stand the test of time, specifically about bouncing back and your body after childbirth. It was just a little bit like, okay, like that's weird. So there's some advice in there that was like, but that was very minor and just like certain chapters. But we did really like a lot of the advice about not being overly involved, like letting your child figure some things out, having a pause moment before you pick up your infant just to figure out if they can self-soothe or not. Also really big around like the eating part of the French way, which brings me to the next book that we read, French Kids Eat Everything. I just talked about this recently because I read it this year. It's very much like a complete culture shift between the French way and the American way, mainly no snacking and like this is a way to get your kids to not be picky eaters and setting up certain rhythms and habits in your life to get your kids to eat the way you want to. But it's very much like kids are included and you all eat around a table together, and there's certain times that you eat. You don't do things so that your children want to eat at times that you all want to eat together. I said eat way too many times, but anyways, those two both kind of go hand in hand. Like, don't take everything from it. The author very much has her own like personal voice in there and the way she does things that you may or may not agree about, but overall I found them very interesting. I learned some things, and I'm not going to take everything from there, but there may be some things that I will want to apply to my own way of parenting and things I want to try around food specifically. And then we have 2 books that we've read on parenting. The first one is The Book You Wish Your Parents Had Read and Your Children Will Be Glad That You Did by Philippa Perry. I think I gave this one 3 stars. Like, I liked it and I also learned some things, but at the same time I feel like I didn't. Like, there was a section that I was like, yeah, all about that. That's a really interesting takeaway or an interesting way to assess the situation. And then at the same time, there's some things that I like didn't fully agree with or love or want to take, which I feel like I'm repeating myself here. Is going to be a lot of the times when you're reading parenting books or nonfiction books about how to live a certain way or how to do a certain thing. You're not going to take everything, but you're going to take a part of it. I just finished Raising Good Humans, which I have here. I'll talk about this in my September wrap up. A mindful guide to breaking the cycle of reactive parenting and raising kind, confident kids. I'll say the majority of this book, which is a very short book, is just about mindfulness and like meditation. And then there's just like a tiny bit at the end with a random parenting advice that the author throws in. But this is very much just like how to do meditation at home as a parent to handle tantrums and basically like work on your inner self and your inner life and your emotions so that you don't react. That's kind of the main takeaway of the book, which is kind of a duh. And this gives a very specific like meditation practices to do. So that's something interested maybe. I thought that this was not super helpful for me. And then I did mention Parenting by Paul David Tripp, 14 Gospel Principles. This is a Christian nonfiction book that my husband and I are currently reading, and we already love it. I don't have like fully takeaways from this, but it's very convicting and it's very great. So if you have like more recommendations along this line, would happily take them. Oh, and then I almost forgot another book that I'm in the middle of that I started last year, and it is a fantastic book, but I just haven't like fully gotten back into it, is M is for Mama, A Rebellion Against Mediocre Motherhood by Abby Halberstadt. This is also a Christian nonfiction book on motherhood, and it is amazing, and it has beautiful like illustrations. Like, the book itself is gorgeous. This is a wonderful book in print to have on your nightstand to like journal through and think through. This is helpful for me as a new mom, but it maybe is more helpful for people who have a little bit older kids or more kids, because there's certain like situations in here that just haven't come up for me yet. But I think this is a fantastic book and a great gift. I've already gifted this to a few people in my life that are moms. I hope to finish it this year. This is a book that I need to get to by the end of the year, but and a book that I see myself coming back to as well. Okay, so those are all the books that I have read, would recommend or not. And then I'm gonna just go through quickly. I don't really know too much about them. They have just made their way onto my want to read list based on seeing that certain people in my life have read them, or they're just like happen to be on some sort of recommendation list, or I just stumbled upon them. So I have a selection of books that I want to read on the topic of either birthing or parenting, and then I'm going to go into my birth story at the end. So this might be a longer one, and I appreciate you sticking around. So books that I want to read, perhaps if I'm pregnant again, still don't know about that, but Transformed by Birth, Cultivating Openness, Resilience, and Strength for the Life-Changing Journey from Pregnancy to Parenthood by Berta Brushnell. I just have it on my want to read list. If I'm pregnant again, I will be picking that one up. The other one that I would definitely read if I'm pregnant again is Babies Are Not Pizzas, They Are Born Not Delivered by Rebecca Decker. This is just more of the like natural unmedicated childbirth route, where hospitals are not the best place to give birth if you're going to go that route, because the mentality of a hospital doesn't really fit with the natural childbirthing rhythms that your body goes through and that you want to go through. And this author is a statistics nurse or something like that. I listened to her on the podcast The Birth Hour, which I listen to a lot of podcasts, and she was on there, and that's how this book got on my radar. And next I'm just going to rattle through some books, and I'm looking at my computer in my list. I have Manners Begin at Breakfast, Modern Etiquette for Families by Princess Marie Chantal of Greece. Oh, that's funny. This book doesn't have the best average ratings, but I thought the cover was really cute. I stumbled upon it on my library like parenting shelf, and I'm curious what the takeaways are in that. Then I want to read There's No Such Thing as Bad Weather, A Scandinavian Mom's Secrets for Raising Healthy, Resilient, and Confident Kids by Linda Exxon McGurk. I know that the Scandinavian method is like put your kids outside all the time and like play in mud puddles, and you see like the kids napping in strollers outside, and there's like a ton of stuff on social media about like Scandinavian kids, which is interesting. I've read some French books and now I'd love to read some like Scandinavian things as well. Next, All Joy and No Fun, The Paradox of Modern Parenthood by Jennifer Senior on my list. Don't know much about it. A Minor Revolution, How Prioritizing Kids Benefits Us All by Adam Benforado. Just an interesting topic. My friend read this one and liked it. Nurture Shock, New Thinking About Children by Poe Bronson, Ashley Merriman. Then I have some more like Christian nonfiction parenting ones. Mama Bear Apologetics, Empowering Your Kids to Challenge Cultural Lies by Hilary Morgan Ferrer. The Whole and Healthy Family, Helping Your Kids Thrive in Mind, Body, and Spirit by Jody Maccabee. Hard is Not the Same Thing as Bad, The Complete Perspective Shift That Could Completely Change the Way You Mother by Abby Halberstadt. So same author as this one. I definitely want to read more of her books just based on how much I'm loving that one. Habits of the Household, Practicing the Story of God in Everyday Family Rhythms by Justin Whitmell Early. I've heard great things about this one. Then some other ones that I own. The Whole Brain Child, 12 Revolutionary Strategies to Nurture Your Child's Developing Mind. This is more of like a psychology point of view, I think, on things. Two super popular ones. How to Talk So Kids Will Listen and Listen So Kids Will Talk by Adele Faber and Elaine Maslish, as well as Parenting with Love and Logic by Foster Klein and Jim Fay. These are like classic parenting books that I own, would love to get to. One for a little bit later to read, For the Children's Sake, Foundations of Education for Home and School by Suzanne Schaefer. This is a introduction to like homeschool, which I still don't know if I want to do, but it's on my list to read and think about for the future on homeschooling. I also have The Danish Way of Parenting on my list that I'd love to read, and the Hunt Gather Parent book. I've seen that one around, don't know anything about it. A newer release, Bad Therapy, Why the Kids Aren't Growing Up by Abigail Schreier is on my list. This is about therapy and like over therapizing, that's not a word, children and like what's going on right now in young kids and mental health stuff. I have Raising Emotionally Strong Boys on my list. And then last one is Oh Crap Potty Training. My friend just highly recommended it for potty training, so definitely will be reading that one when the time comes. Those are all my books on my want to read list. Let me know if you've read any of them, positive, negative thoughts, ones maybe not worth reading as a skip, ones that you would highly recommend, and then again, any other recommendations at all about parenting books. Or you know what, I'm just gonna even throw in any books on like motherhood, even novels about the topic, which opens up the door. I know this is like nonfiction heavy, but I'm clearly interested in this topic. And so I'd love to just pick more books up because this is the life stage I'm in right now and it's just so relatable to read books about it. So that is all that. Thanks for sticking around. I know I've been talking fast and throwing all the books at you. Next, let me end with my birth story. I hope this will be brief, but I'm not making any promises because I have talked about this and I've shared the story with people in my life, and my husband and I also recorded while we were still at the hospital. We recorded an hour-long like voice memo of our experience, which I highly recommend doing just to look back on because you forget so much. And birth is not always traumatic, but it often is. Even if it's a positive experience, it could be like a big traumatic thing because it's so painful and crazy. So your mind kind of shuts some stuff down that you don't remember. And so when those like glimpses come back to you, journaling, writing that down, talking even to a phone to like record it often helps. And us retelling the story many times to friends and family that visited in that first month or so also kind of helped us process and go through it. Again, would recommend that. So I do have like very detailed notes and also some pictures and videos, which I'll pop up a few appropriate ones, nothing graphic, from my birth and labor time. Let's get into it. So I'm not gonna give too much details, I don't think, and I will probably be talking very fast. So slow me down if I'm talking too fast. You can do that on YouTube. But anyways, I was 40 weeks and 4 days pregnant when I had my first contractions at 11 p.m. and I got super excited because I was just ready. The thing that was crazy was that after you reach your due date, like I was really expecting for my baby to just like come out. Like I was doing all of the things to induce labor and none of that was really happening. So your baby's just gonna come when they're gonna come. And once you pass your due date, you're in this like anxiety, like limbo state. I was just in between, like life can't move on because the next thing that you're doing is labor and birth, and that is like the most important thing coming up, and you're just prepared for it and you want it to happen and you don't know what's going to happen and you really can't do anything else in life. Like I was trying to distract myself, but I had the hardest time because I just wanted to get there. So 40 weeks and 4 days, that is when contractions started at 11 p.m. and then I contracted through the night and I was getting super stoked that it was happening. At 7 a.m. I woke up my husband. He was going to work. I said, nope, you're staying home because labor is happening. And then we had a doctor's appointment that morning anyways, already with the midwife. It was going to be like a non-stress test. By the time that appointment rolled around, my contractions stalled out and I basically went to that appointment and they were like, yeah, you might be in labor, but it might be false labor. There's really no guarantees. And I was like 2 or 3 centimeters dilated and I did get 2 cervical sweeps to also induce labor. So I thought like things were happening, but they were like, just go home, rest, because I didn't sleep that entire night because I thought labor was happening and I was just so anxious and excited. And I was like texting my doula and all that, but nothing happened. And then I was really disappointed, like bummed out, and I was just just like, dang it, I got my hopes up. My husband decided to go to work and I was like, yeah, go to work because nothing's really happening. I decided to take a nap midday and then contractions picked back up and they really like went into gear around 6 p.m. My husband came home from work and then I kind of went into my little labor zone. I had an upbeat playlist because people like have an upbeat playlist and then like a chill playlist, and my brain was never ready for the upbeat. I was like, no, like labor's happening, I need to focus. So I just turned on like worship music and put candles on, and I tried to take a bath and tried to like lay in bed and do my thing, and everyone's like, labor is home as long as possible. And then around 10 p.m. contractions got super intense, so intense that I threw up. I guess if you're already listening to this, like you shouldn't be, you know, squeamish about things. I'm gonna say some things. So anyways, I got really panicky because I was like, the hospital is 20 minutes away, stuff's really like getting more intense. I don't want to be home anymore. I want to get to my safe place, which I was giving birth in a hospital, but it was the birthing room in a hospital. It's still a hospital room, but there's just no medical equipment, and there's like a bed and the big pool, just more like relaxing space. So I called my midwife on the phone and all that, get to the hospital around 10 o'clock. I get checked in. I'm 5 centimeters dilated, so I'm staying. I labored from 11 p.m. until 8:12 a.m. is when Finn was born, and I did a lot of things in between that. All the different strategies that I had to cope, and I had a doula there, which was amazing, and the midwives kind of just stayed away. The nursing staff came in here and there to intermittently check the fetal heartbeat, and Finn was doing great. I liked being in the bathtub, like the bathtub shower, and like holding on to the bars that are in there. Labored in there for a few hours. Labored in bed when I got really tired. I just like laid on my side and like cuddled with my husband and went through contractions there for a while. I was very aware of like my body, which I was very thankful for. I noticed when like stuff kind of slowed down and didn't get more painful, which you want it to progress. Like if you want the baby to come out, then you gotta keep going, and you gotta embrace the pain and go through it. And so I was very aware when stuff kind of slowed down and I got really sleepy, and I was like, no, I don't want to be sleepy. I need the baby to come out, so I need to like keep going. So I'd moved from the bed, I went to the toilet, loved being on the toilet, and like just the squat position was really helpful. I got checked again and I was only like 7 and I wanted things to keep going, and so I got my water broken for me, which was kind of a fail, but whatever. And then I got into like the big blow up tub. In this particular hospital, they don't have clearance yet to like give birth in the tub, but you can labor in it, which was wonderful. It was so warm and comforting, and I ate popsicles in the labor pool thing, and that was great. Really, things kicked up into gear. I had to like stand up and like sway with my husband, and that was helpful to like get the pressure to get the baby to come out, and did that for a while, blasting worship music. There's like 2 particular songs that I will always just connect with labor. If for whatever reason they ever like turn on, my husband and I, like when they turn on our like playlist, if we're ever listening to music at home or in the car, we just get so emotional. Like we cannot listen to that song without just tears weeping down our face. And my husband was very emotional, and he calls it the worst night of his life because I was in pain, and he like, you can't really help your person. You could do everything, but like you cannot take their place. And it was such a long time of laboring in pain. Anyway, so we did that, and then around 7:30 I got very grunty in the tub again, because very aware of my body, and it just like your body kind of naturally starts pushing, so you just go like you just start needing to push. And they checked me and they're like, yep, all good, let's go. And so I just pushed on all fours with like a birthing ball, pushed for 32 minutes only, which was great. And I really liked pushing because it was like very productive, and like you're actually doing something. Like when you're going through contractions, you just don't know, like you could just do one contraction at a time, but you don't know how long you're going to do that for. But with pushing, you're like, okay, I can feel it, like it's happening, let's go, we're at the finish line. And that was awesome. And then I pushed him out, and Phineas was born. He was born 8 pounds 1 ounce, 21 inches long, happy, healthy. He was a little congested in his chest, so like all the baby videos, like you could hear his breathing. It's like very congested, but the pediatrician checked and he was all fine. It's just, you know, gunk from being in the womb for that long. So he was born at 40 weeks, 6 days, on a Thursday at 8:12 in the morning. He is gonna be 1 years old soon here, coming up. September 28th is the day. That is my birthing story. Overall, very positive for me. All of that happening, I thought was very, very positive and almost spiritual. Like I was definitely in a labor land. I was praying and listening to worship music, and like had really positive self-talk, which I'm very shocked because I didn't necessarily prep for that. And I'm a very negative person who has very negative self-talk and negative like image on myself and very intrusive thoughts. But for some reason through the whole of it, I mean, it's totally a God thing for me. Like I was just so positive. I was just like, let's go baby, come on baby. Like I was doing it. And my husband like notes that as a thing that he noticed a lot, was how positive I was through it all and how like strong I was, which I was like, again, totally like, I kind of can't believe I did it, but I did it. I won't be too graphic, but that part was all amazing. And then I got like 15 minutes maybe holding him. I didn't get the golden hour, which is where you hold your baby. I didn't get that because they were concerned about hemorrhaging and some placenta being stuck. And so they like took away the baby. They tried to, I didn't want IV, so I didn't get anything beforehand. And so afterward, they tried to put an IV in me to get fluid in me and Pitocin, and they couldn't do it in one arm. They poked me like 7 times and I was like, stop it. Anyways, they took the baby to Brendan, my husband. He was holding him. The doula, my doula, who was absolutely incredible, would highly recommend a doula, like just complete lifesaver. She held my hand, and then it went from like this positive, like peaceful thing to like a very traumatic, like hospital experience, which I'm glad that it all happened the way it did. I think it felt like unnecessarily panicky and my body went into shock. Basically all like the lights came on, there was like a bunch of nursing staff and doctors in the room, and they were like trying to like, they were like shoving on my abdomen to like get the placenta to close and the uterus to close, and blood was gushing out. I don't think it ever was like super medically concerning, like that they were like actually concerned for my life, but it did feel that way. And I just remember shaking, like my whole body just like convulsing, and just holding my doula's hand saying, am I dying? Am I dying? Am I hemorrhaging? Did I tear so bad that I just am bleeding? Like I didn't realize it was like an internal thing that they were concerned about. Everything turned out to be okay, but it was very traumatic, that part, and I don't know if it needed to be. Again, if you have any specific questions, you can ask me down below. But if I go through it again, if I decide to give birth again, I definitely am on the like trying home birth. I'm glad I did the birthing center and that we had the hospital staff, like they were all wonderful, all that was positive. But I do really want to try home birth, because now that I've been through it and I feel like I know what to expect and I know how it's gonna go. Not that it will ever be the same twice, but I think I can do it at home, and I think it could be really positive. So that would be probably what I am gonna try to do if I do it again, which at this point I'm still not sure that I want to, because being a mom has been really hard, and Finn has been a very challenging child, and I'm like the pregnancy and birth, as hard as it was not even anything compared to how hard it is to be a parent and to raise a child. That's my story. Yeah, I tried to be brief. I tried to not give too much, but if you have any other specific questions, please let me know. I know this is a little bit different than what I usually post, but just wanted to share that about my life and about the season that I'm in. Thank you so much for watching, if you have, and if you've stuck around through this long video, and for spending some time with me today, listening to what I have to say. And I will see you guys in a more regularly scheduled programming book video soon. Are we matching in our stripes? You say hi to the camera. Yeah, what's that? The camera?
Baba. Baba. Baba.